Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a deep dive into this Kentucky Wildcats football program heading into 2023. And I'll say this right off the bat, this is a team that can be extremely dangerous in the SEC if some things come together. You take a look at what they brought in through the transfer portal, you read some of the fall practice notes about how it's coming together, then you go and take a look at the schedule, which we'll do in just a second. This is a team that can really make some noise in that SEC. But again, a few things need to come together. Now, before we dive in, just want to say one, thank you to you guys. And if you guys have been longtime listeners, you know I'm a Michigan fan born and raised. But this Kentucky team, I've always been a massive fan of. Going back to the John Schlarman days, I'm a massive fan of the culture that Coach Stoops has created in Lexington. And you even look back, 7-6 in 2022. There are a lot of eras of Kentucky football where that's a quality year. That's not really the standard anymore with Coach Stoops. That is like 8, 9, 10 plus wins is kind of the expectation. And I think Kentucky has a chance to get back to that in 2023. So if you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, let me know in the comment section what you guys think, some names that I might have been leaving out. I say this and I truly do mean it. The best part about doing these deep dives from you guys, chopping it up with you guys about it in the comment section. So let me know what you guys are thinking. Again, appreciate y'all rocking with the boys. And let's get into this Kentucky team. And I really do think it starts with this offensive line. We'll get to the skill positions a little bit later. But if this offensive line can come together, I think you're really looking at one of the top offenses in the SEC. Now, diving into this offensive line, some of the numbers from last year, just not Kentucky-esque, right? 19.5 points per game. That was 111th nationally. The biggest concerning numbers you look at, and I'm going back and watching some of the film, it was bad, and then the numbers back it up, right? 3.3 yards per carry. That is not what you're used to seeing with this Kentucky offense, who's normally can grind teams down and run the football. And that didn't have to do with the running backs. Like Chris Rodriguez, a solid running back. They just couldn't really block. And then you look at pass protection, 11.8% sack rate. That is 128th nationally. That's not one of the worst offensive lines in the SEC. It was one of the worst in the country. You saw with Will Levis, just couldn't stay healthy. And it really was a frustrating offense to watch with how much this offensive line struggled. Now, how does it take steps forward in 2023? You bring in Marquise Cox from Northern Illinois, who a really quality starting left tackle, which is often hard to find in the transfer portal. Kentucky gets it done there. Now, can he make that step from the group of 5 to the SEC? That's a question. But you haven't really had many questions about Marquise Cox on the football field. And then you look at the other tackle. That's probably the storyline, because when you look on inside, Kenneth Horsey, really, really solid. Eli Cox, when healthy, a really solid interior offensive line. When healthy and those guys are playing their right positions, I think you feel good about the interior. I think the one question mark you have about this Kentucky offensive line heading into 2023 is that right tackle spot. Jeremy Flax was just downright bad last year, so he either has to take some steps or Cortland Ford is going to be playing. Cortland Ford's, again, a guy that 12 months ago at this time, and you saw him on draft boards. You talk about the traits. You talk about what he brings to the table physically. There are a lot of NFL teams that, kind of satisfies all those things. Now, lost his starting job at USC. Wasn't really great for USC last year. If Jeremy Flax or Cortland Ford, one of them just can step up and give quality right tackle play, I do think this offensive line can take some steps in the right direction. And if it does, you're really looking at an offense that I think can be one of the better offenses in the SEC, excuse me. And I think it starts with the quarterback, Devin Leary, coming in. And for how good and talented Will Levis was, he did struggle with accuracy at times. He missed some throws that just kind of made you scratch your head. And I get the protection wasn't great at times. The wide receiver play was young and inexperienced, but he did miss some throws. Devin Leary, not a guy that misses any throws. That his game is accuracy, and he is a truly one of the more productive FBS quarterbacks that we've seen, right? 6,800 yards, 62 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. He's productive, takes care of the football. He makes the throws you need to make. If you can keep Devin Leary healthy with this offensive line, I really do think that this passing attack can be elite, because you look at the pass catcher group, and this is a wide receiver room that if you don't follow football very closely, you're probably not saying it's an elite group. I'll tell you right now, I would challenge people who are listening to name me 2 better wide receiver rooms in the SEC than the Kentucky Wildcats. I truly think it's one of the better rooms in this conference. And you take a look at Barion Brown. I mean, one of the most explosive players in the country. Dane Key, I believe, broke the freshman record for touchdowns as a true freshman, and Barion Brown broke the record for yards as a true freshman. So you got two really special wide receivers who you could even expect to take a step going into year two. I mean, these guys were both true freshmen last year. And then Tavian Robinson, who I kind of pegged as the Wayndell Robinson kind of replacement. And at times he flashed that ability, and at times it got kind of away from him. I know he had some off the field issues. If that group that group is going to be good. Devin Leary is going to be good. If the offensive line can come together, you're looking at a very fun offense. And then you look at the backfield, you have Ray Davis coming in from Vanderbilt, who I think is a really, really quality SEC running back. And then Demi Sumo coming over from NC State as well. It's not Chris Rodriguez back there. I think Chris Rodriguez would probably be the best back in this back. Well, Ray Davis is good. Like this, I guess what I'm saying is you don't really have many question marks about the skill talent that's around Devin Leary. It's a good running back room. I think it's a really good pass catcher room. That offensive line can come together. Like you're really looking at an elite offense. And again, Liam Cohen coming back as the offensive coordinator has to have Kentucky fans really, really excited. Now, looking over at the defensive side of the ball, this was a group that sneakily, and I didn't even know this until I dug into the numbers and dug into the film, was one of the best groups in the country last year. I mean, like top 20 in a lot of the top important metrics for defense. And I think it starts up front heading into 2023. You have a really, really good interior defensive line. Right, Deion Walker as a true freshman, which is partially why you're excited. A lot of these guys who are coming back, they're not fifth-year guys coming back. They're guys who are young and probably can take some steps in the right direction. Deion Walker was phenomenal as a true freshman, and that's rare to see. Just a big body, really hard to deal with. And then you go and get Keyshawn Silver, who was a former five-star transferring in from North Carolina, who apparently the coaching staff absolutely loves. And then Octavius Oxidine as well. It's a nice interior defensive line that should be able to stop the run at a high level, but also get some pressure from the inside. And that's going to be important because you take a look at the edge rushers where you're going to get some of that sack production. It was a part that struggled last year. You lose some of those guys. I love JJ Weaver. Outside of that, I think you have some questions of who is going to kind of emerge as an edge rusher. They got a few names that they like, JJ Weaver being my favorite. Then you look at the linebacker room. Like that, you lose guys like DeAndre Square, who, I mean, a lot of those linebackers, Jones, like stalwarts in that Kentucky defense, they've been in the program for 4, 5, 6 years. I really do think you have one with Trevin Wallace. And Trevin Wallace might be an NFL type dude. I don't know if he's like Jamin Davis, but like he's a really, really good linebacker that I don't know if you see like a step back from that linebacker room. And then in the secondary, Mark Stoops, one of the better coaches at coaching the secondary, having an elite passing defense, and you go and get some guys in the transfer portal. You have some guys coming back. I guess I'll kind of chalk it up to I like the pieces they have. I'll trust Mark Stoops to kind of get this secondary right. And I don't know if this defense, with how much production you lost and kind of looking at my numbers, is going to be better than it was last year. But I don't think you're going to see significant steps back. And if that offense, and this is a team that went 7-6 last year with an offense that was bottom 100 in the country in a lot of important metrics. And if this defense can kind of stay where it is, hold serve a little bit, and that offense takes some serious steps, I don't think it's crazy to talk about 10 wins. And then you look at the schedule, and I'm not trying to get overly crazy on the Kentucky hype train. I love how this schedule plays out. I mean, I think Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, at Vanderbilt, and Florida could all be wins for Kentucky. You're going 5-0 heading into Athens, and I'm not going to say you're going to go beat the Georgia Bulldogs on the road, but it's going to be kind of getting some buzz around this program. If you can be 5-0 going on the road to Georgia, like you're going to start getting a lot of eyeballs. And then the next week, if you can beat Missouri going into the bye week, and you're sitting at 6-1, you get a bye week. This Tennessee team, if you've been listening to me, I think is very gettable. Like they lose a lot of production. I have question marks about Joe Milton being that guy from a consistent standpoint. We all know Joe Milton can throw the ball 100 yards, right? He is a quarterback that struggles with consistency. Has struggled with turnovers in the past. Tennessee losing Cedric Tillman, losing Jalen Hyatt, losing Darnell Wright. that's a team that a lot of people are pegging as like a top SEC team. And I think they certainly can be, but I also think they're certainly gettable. And so if you can be 6-1 going into your bye week, getting all your guys healthy, and then going and hosting Tennessee Saturday, October 28th, I think that is, I mean, I don't know if I'm picking Kentucky right now to win that game. I would say it's certainly winnable. And then on the road at Mississippi State, a lot of moving parts. That's a very winnable. I'm probably favoring Kentucky on the road there. Probably not going to pick to win Alabama. And then on the road at South Carolina, on the road at Louisville. There are two games that I probably am not for sure not picking Kentucky in. Georgia and Alabama. And then Tennessee, I think, is a toss-up. You have a few toss-ups, but outside of Georgia and Alabama, the two top teams in the SEC, I think this Kentucky team can bang with and beat any team on their schedule. And they're getting a lot of those big matchups, Missouri and Tennessee, at home. So you talk about what this season could be for Kentucky if this offensive line comes together, if this defense can hold serve. You're looking at a team that I think can go 9-3. And I get that's like optimistic, but I think they can beat Tennessee. I mean, I guess what I'll say is I'm only picking them to lose Georgia and Alabama. And then, if you can just win a lot of those toss-up games, this is a season that could be really exciting for Kentucky. And if you're a fan, I think you're going to see a massive step in the right direction on the offensive side of the ball. And this Kentucky team kind of back to the expectations that Mark Stoops has in Lexington. A very fun team to keep an eye on. Again, Devin Leary, I think one of the most underrated transfer portal quarterback additions that you've seen. You add Liam Cohen. I'm really excited for this team. Again, would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.